Hello students, I wanted to take just a few minutes and back up just a little bit and look at the AP exam, some of the information that's going to be covered, look at some specific strategies. Uh, College Board, I think, is working really hard to put a lot of information out on YouTube for us. Just tons of hours really of useful information out there, but the units that are going to be covered are 1 through 7 on the exam. And they've elected to go ahead and start with units 8 and 9 in their review, which I think what we'll do is I definitely want to cover. We've actually covered unit 8. I want to cover unit 9, but we'll come back and cover that after the AP exam, assuming that we're able to get back together in the school year. So I want to take just a few minutes and pop up some information. This PowerPoint is going to be available to you on the front page of Canvas. So let's just take a look at that and go through this for just a few minutes. What is going to be on the exam? Students are going to have 25 minutes to read and respond to question 1, and then 5 minutes to upload the response. After uploading the response to question 1, you will have 15 minutes to respond to question 2, with an additional 5 minutes to upload your response to question 2. Once your response to question 1 has been submitted, you cannot go back to it. So you have 2 questions, 25 minutes for question 1, 15 minutes for question 2, and 5 minutes after each question to submit it. Once you have submitted question 1, you cannot go back. So it counts for 60% of the weight on that question, and then 40% of the weight on question number 2. So you need to be clear on that. Well, what do those 2 questions look like? Question number 1 represents students with an authentic environmental scenario accompanied by either a model, visual representation of what is a model. A model could be one of like the carbon cycle or the phosphate cycle, the nitrous. So those are models, okay? So we're not sure what model is going to be, or you will be given a set of quantitative data. You're going to get a table of numbers or whatever on whatever that environmental issue is, and then you've got to be able to do what? Describe and explain environmental concepts, processes, and models in a written format. That means you're going to have to write sentences, okay? But you guys have been doing great on that, so I'm not worried. Analyze visual representations of data. That means a graph, some kind of a chart or a bar chart, a circle chart, a line chart, and we've looked at tons of those this year. Analyze research studies that test environmental principles. So again, you're going to need to analyze information, data, charts, and then be able to understand what that's saying and then provide some kind of an answer. And describe environmental problems and or potential responses. So lots of environmental problems that we've talked about might be watershed issues, like going back to that unit where you've got nitrate runoff, you going back to some of the biological units where we had problems with habitat or deforestation, or just there's so many things. We'll go back over those. I'm gonna really drop back and focus on some of those review. So that's question number 1, 60% of your grade. Question number 2 presents students with an authentic environmental scenario. So again, exact same thing, accompanied by either a model, visual representation, or quantitative data, and assess your ability to describe and or explain environmental concepts, processes, models, analyze visual data. So these are exactly the same, except propose and justify solutions to an environmental problem. So you're going to have to solve the problem. And the key here is to propose a solution that's realistic. You can't say, well, we're going to close all factories down, or we're going to stop using all oil products in 1 year. Those just aren't realistic solutions. So you have to be able to think through and propose a realistic solution to get credit. So that's what the questions are going to be. All right. FRQ number 1, 2020 question number 1 has been lengthened from a typical FRQ. So a typical FRQ is 22 minutes. This is a 25-minute question. So I'm assuming it's going to look pretty much the same, except instead of A, B, C, D, E, they're probably going to have A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Okay. Note that basic definitions, okay, are not going to be what they're looking for. Students will not be asked to provide or will be granted any points for just basic definitions. So just defining some terms is not going to get you any points. You're going to have to focus on environmental concepts, processes, and models. So that's what I'm going to try to get our focus on now as we're working through this, okay? And how they interrelate and apply to environmental scenarios. Same thing for question number 2, except it's just going to be a shorter type question. Now, the reason they're doing that is they don't want you just to Google the answer and then plop it down. You can Google a definition to a term in 5 seconds. We all know that, and then just write out a definition. So you're going to have to take those terms and utilize them in some kind of a modeling process, a scenario, and interrelate them in some way. So that's the challenge that you're going to have. What units are covered? 1 through 7. 8 through 9 are not going to be covered. Okay, and I'm going to show you exactly what those are in just a second. Now, your review of science practices. Now, because this is a purely FRQ test, right? No multiple choice, no just memory application. You've got to be able to apply the knowledge that you've learned throughout the entire year, okay? Here's your scientific practices. You've got concept explanation, and then visual representations, okay? I'm not going to read all this to you. I'm going to let you go back over this and just take a look at it. But now look at the task, what's called the task verbs. You've got describe, explain, explain, describe, explain, explain. So what are your skills? Explaining a concept and then understanding visual representations. Again, that's charts and graphs and models and that sort of thing. Okay, so those are your first 2 practices. There are what, 7 of these, right? 7 science practices. All right, practice number 3. Practice number 3. All right, text analysis. So you're going to need to be able to read the information about it. You need to understand what is the author saying, what's their perspective, what's their reasoning, is their claim credible? Okay, does it seem to be valid? In your science explanations, analyzing research studies. So you might be given in your FRQ some type of research type study with the scientists planted 2 fields and applied this pesticide, and then they measured this and discovered that. So did they have a testable hypothesis? What was the research method? Describing and oh my goodness, sorry. Describing an aspect or research method, design, or the measure used. So you got to understand the scientific principles that they used in that. Okay, so that's practice 3 and 4. Practice 5 and 6. Okay, analyzing data. I am almost 100% sure that you're going to need to analyze some data. They're telling us that, which is interpreting quantitative data represented in charts, tables, and graphs, okay? So you're probably going to need to be able to understand charts, tables, and graphs, and some kind of a modeling type scenario. And you need to understand describe, and there's your task verbs again: describe, explain, interpret, explain, determine, apply, calculate, okay? Calculate an accurate numeric answer. So again, you're going to be able to use some of those math skills. So you've got data analysis and mathematical routines. And then finally, in environmental solutions, and they're telling you if we go back, okay, if we go back to the way that question is defined, you need to that was here. Propose and justify solutions to an environmental problem, okay? So there you go. down here in science practice, number 7, environmental solutions, propose and justify solutions to environmental problems. So what does that mean? Describing the problem. You need to understand what the problem is. Describing responses to it, advantages, disadvantages, using the data to support it. So if you're going to make a claim using the data that's given, you need to be able to incorporate that data in your answer and justify it. Okay? Now here's the task verbs that that College Board uses. So again, I'm not going to read these to you. You can go back and do that on your own. Calculate, describe, explain, identify, justify, make a claim, or propose a solution. Go back and take a look at those. So when you read the question, you need to know exactly what it is that they're asking you to do. Now I'm going to tell you right now, again, almost 100% sure you're going to have to write at least several sentences, complete sentences. That means subject and verb, subject and verb. I don't want just bullet points. I don't want you to just list out a numeric answer unless they're asking you for that specifically. Be able to list out all of the things, the tasks that they're asking you to do here in complete sentences, okay? Now, what did we cover? All right, again, I'm not going to read all these through you. I've given you an assignment where you can go and self-evaluate, and then we're going to start fixing leaks here for you guys. I'm kind of going to get short on time, but here's the units. Unit 1, living systems. 2, biodiversity. So, I'm sorry, ecosystems, biodiversity, populations. I'll leave this to you to go back and look at. Earth systems, land, water use, energy resources, and then atmospheric pollution. We've covered all those units. Now, we actually covered Unit 8 as well and 9, but those are not going to be included. Now, in your textbook, how does your textbook relate to the AP units? Well, here they are. Here's your textbook chapters and each of the units. So you said, well, what do I go back and look at, Dr. Church? Go back to your textbook. I know that some of you have throughout the year said, oh, I hate reading the textbook. Oh, I just don't want to look at that. But if you've read it, if you've studied it, it is a handy reference. When you go back to it now and just flip through, it's going to look very familiar. And you're going to be able to grab those concepts really quickly. And if you have it on your iPad, if you're doing your AP exam on a computer, hey, it's open book. You can flip really quickly into your textbook, jump over there, and use something that's in there. Just maybe you didn't remember it exactly, so be very familiar with that. You've got a month to get back into your textbook. Just read through, flip through, look at the table of contents. Unit 1 is chapters 1 through 4. Unit 2 is 5 and 6. Unit 3 on population is 6 and 7. Earth systems was chapter 8. Land and water use was 9, 10, and 11. Energy resources 12 and 13, and you can see the rest. Units 8 and 9, which is chapters 14 through 19, we covered, I think, through 17. The only things we had not done was 18 and 19 in that textbook. So if you know everything in that book up to chapter 15, you are going to be golden for this test, okay? Now, what do I want you to do? I've put a self-assessment assignment out there where I've listed out all of the subject matter, and I just want you to self-assess. Just give yourself a score. I tell you in there how to score yourself from 0, which is what in the world are you talking about? I don't remember this at all, up to a 7, which is, hey, bring it on. I could teach this. I've got this. So open the self-assessment, review the topics. Don't be too hard on yourself, but don't be too easy. And then you're going to upload the file into Canvas so I can take a look at it. Then I want you to go and devise a personal study plan. And we can talk about this on Friday when we have our live meeting. And lay out a study plan for yourself. How do you do that? List out the topics. Write some questions about the terms or concepts that you have. Just things, I don't remember that. I don't understand that. And then find the answers to those questions. You get them from me, get them from your friend, get them from the book, get them from Google. I don't care. Just go find the answers to the questions, right? Look at some of those AP review questions and just sit down and just read through those questions. Go back through your old test. Go back through the FRQs that we've done. Look at some of the FRQs that are in the book that we didn't do. We didn't do them all. And so you can go back through those and I can give you all the answers to those. So that's going to be your assignment. You can do this. It's going to work out great. You're all going to do great on this, but we have to press through to the end. We have to finish our work up to the day of the AP exam, and then after that, hey, we'll let the good times roll.